everyone. Welcome to ABC Interactive English. I'm Mike.
And I'm Sam.
It's part 2, day 2 of The Riverman,
yes.
our story for this month. It's a summertime story that takes place on July 4th, Independence Day, America's birthday. Yay! And in the story, we were actually not really doing a traditional July the 4th activity.
Yeah.
We were kind of spending some time with two guys, Jimmy and Dickie, and they were in a very serious burling or log rolling contest. And I think at the end of the story, Jimmy, who seemed to be more popular with the crowd, he was getting more cheers and more shouts and stuff, but he actually lost the match.
Yes, and so I think this is kind of interesting because now I don't know where this story is going to go, because normally I feel like in a story that's about a match, some kind of game, then the whole story is kind of leading up to who's going to win and who's going to lose.
Right.
Well, the first part, we already know that Jimmy lost. So where can this go, I wonder?
That is a very good point. Yeah, what is the author thinking? What kind of story is it? It's obviously not one of those classic sports contest stories, as you say, and someone's already fallen in the water, and well, we've learned about burling, so I don't think we're going to learn more about the sport.
Yeah, so I'm really interested to see where's the author going to take this. There must be something big coming up.
Right.
But I have no guesses.
I have no guesses either, but I have good news. We can start reading the story right now, so we'll find out what's going to be going on with the Riverman. Plus, we've already met two people. It should be the Rivermen.
That's true.
There are many unanswered questions about this story, so we're hoping for some answers today because we're in day 2. So let's check out the Riverman, not Rivermen, Riverman, part 2.
I came across Jimmy after the match. He told me that Dickie stepped on his foot and tripped him. Also, he would get his revenge for Dickie's dishonest play. The next year, I returned to the same lumber town.
Okay, so now we are into our part 2. So Jimmy just fell off. Oh, sad day. So that means that Dickie just won. And now we're going to see what's happening in this story. So if we continue on, we have the next part that says, I came across Jimmy after the match. He told me that Dickie stepped on his foot and tripped him.
No! He cheated. Dickie.
So now we see like there might be some new conflict, some new trouble that might pop up. Also, he would get his revenge for Dickie's dishonest play. So Jimmy said, hey, this is what happened, and also, I am going to get my revenge on Dickie.
That's right. It looked like a simple game. Two guys competing in this burling contest. One wins, one loses. Then afterwards, we find out there was some dirty play going on there. Someone was cheating. That's right. Jimmy said that Dickie tripped him during the match, during the contest. And that, of course, is not allowed in almost any sport. You're not allowed to trip a person because when you trip someone, you stick your leg out, or maybe your arm, but probably your leg, and you block their legs when they're trying to run. So if someone's running, I stick out my leg, they hit my leg, they fall down. And of course in soccer, basketball, baseball, almost any sport, at that point the referee would blow the whistle, point at you and say, you did something illegal, you committed a penalty or a foul, you're in trouble, they'll go off for 2 minutes, whatever it is, because tripping someone is not a nice thing to do. You, of course, can trip yourself just by accident, by not looking where you're going. If you're walking along and you don't notice that the street suddenly drops or goes up, you might trip and fall. But in sports, it's always something that you don't want to do. You'll get in trouble because it's dishonest.
Yes, and so dishonest, as used in this way and in most ways, it means to cheat or to do something that is not honest. So honest, obviously, is to be truthful, to be fair, to play it correctly if you're talking about in sports or something like that. You played an honest game, it means you didn't cheat. So then dishonest would be the opposite of that. And so in this case, tripping somebody would be considered dishonest because those are not playing by the rules.
Yeah.
They're not playing fair, so you are being dishonest. You can also be dishonest when you're lying.
Sure.
So it doesn't have to be something physical that you're actually cheating. You might just lie, which is being dishonest. Some people try to say, oh, I wasn't lying, I was just being dishonest. They're the same thing. So you can't really say it, even though dishonest sounds slightly nicer than lying, but really, they're the same thing.
They're the same thing, exactly right. You're giving people information you know is wrong in order to give yourself an edge, an advantage, to get out of trouble or something like that. And if someone was really dishonest with you and really hurt you and did something bad, you might want to get revenge on that person. Revenge is that action that you take after someone did something bad to you, and you're like, I'm going to do something bad to them so that things will be even. Of course, this is not a very healthy or good way to think about things. Two bad actions don't make a good action, but it is kind of a human thing to do, right? We're hurt, our feelings are hurt, someone did something bad, they seem to be fine and happy, and you're like, I want them to feel angry or sad or bad like I feel, so I want to get revenge. It's often used in movies.
Yes.
Right? Someone kills someone's brother, I will get revenge on you. But of course, that ends up with more people getting hurt, and of course, the police probably won't care.
Yes, and
if
so
you do something bad back to a person. You're still doing something bad.
Still counts as something bad, yeah.
Exactly.
And in this story, we don't know for sure if it necessarily is going to go super far to the kind of negative side. It could just be he wants revenge, as in he wants to just win the next game. So sometimes you do hear this word used in sporting kind of terms where it's like, oh, we'll get revenge on them in the next game, and it doesn't mean we're gonna hurt them or something like that. We just want to win the next game. So maybe Jimmy is not quite thinking too far to the bad way, but who knows?
And actually, that's a really good point. If Jimmy can get revenge by winning the next game and not being dishonest, he's even better. He got back and he did it very cleanly, very fairly by following the rules. So, yeah, we're going to find out what happens. And it seems in our story we now jump in time by quite a bit. It says, the next year, I returned to the same lumber town. So a whole year has gone by, the fall, the Christmas season, back to the spring and summer. Now it's July 4th again, Independence Day again. It's time for another celebration. So the writer of the story goes back to the same place to, I guess, you know, have a party and join the festivities for July 4th.
So it seems like that's the place to be for this kind of time. And so he returned. So return is a verb that means to go back to some place that you were already you went there before, and then you return, you go back again. You can also use this if you need to return something that you borrowed. Like you might borrow a book from the library. So that means to give back. So there's go back and also give back, depending on what you did in the first place.
That's right, and he's returning to the same lumber town. We saw that there. Lumber is a kind of industry, it's a kind of business, and it's also what we call trees. Trees that are cut down and prepared to use to make buildings or anything out of wood, paper. All of those trees, when they're cut from a forest, chopped into logs, moved out to places they can send them around the world. That is all lumber, all right? Or even if you're making something at home and you need to go to a big store where they sell all different kinds of wood in different sizes, they would say, what are you looking for today? You'd say, I need some lumber to build a new desk or to build a new house or something like that. So it's a name for wood, but wood in a situation where we're cutting it, we're going to use it to make things, that wood we would call lumber. It's a tree in a forest, it's a wooden table, but in between it would be lumber at some time. And I guess a lumber town is a town near a forest where the main job for the local people is cutting down trees and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So there you go. It looks like it's going to be an exciting birling match. I can't wait to see what happens and find out if Jimmy gets his revenge. So let's take our break and then we'll do that.
It was earlier in the season, and everyone was at the big log jam. That interested me, so I went to check it out. The jam looked like it was about to break. Then, all of a sudden, part of it did. That caused Dickie to fall into the river.
Okay, welcome back. So we are back a year later in the lumber town. It's 4th of July again, or around that time.
Oh, okay.
And our writer has come back to the town. He returned to see what's going to happen this year. So let's go ahead and jump right in and see what happens. So the next part goes, it was earlier in the season and everyone was at the big log jam. Okay, so it's the next year, but maybe not quite to 4th of July.
Okay.
So a little bit earlier in the season, but it's getting close. That interested me, so I went to check it out. So everybody's at this big log jam. What is a log jam?
Well, this is probably something that would happen maybe in the spring or early summer in a lumber town. I think back in the old days, before they had big trucks and machines, a lot of this was done by people power, by horses, and they used the river to carry the logs from the forest down to where they could sell them or put them on boats. And of course, in the wintertime, that river would be frozen. The snow would be everywhere. You couldn't really move the trees. So probably in the spring, that's when they would send a lot of the trees down. And of course, when you had a lot of these trees floating down the river, they might get all stuck together, and that would be a jam. Now here, of course, we're not talking about strawberry jam or something that you put on your toast in the morning. Here, we're talking about when things are stuck together because you're trying to get many things through a small space. Now, if you've ever seen a log jam, if you've ever traveled to Washington State or Vancouver in Canada, where they do a lot of this lumber work, you might see it there. But of course, most people, they would see a traffic jam. If you're ever trying to drive on the roads in the morning before work or in the evening after work, you know there's a lot of people trying to get home, and sometimes there are too many cars to fit into a small space on the road. We would call that a traffic jam. The traffic, the cars are stuck together. No one can move. They're all kind of trying to get into this very small area. And of course, for a lot of people, these lumber activities, from burling to chopping trees to the way they can climb the trees really fast, it is kind of interesting.
Yes,
right?
and this obviously, this story kind of takes place a while ago, so there's probably not a lot else going on in these kind of small foresty lumber towns.
They didn't have Netflix.
Yeah, there's not a lot of binge watching or anything like that.
Games.
So something like this would interest people. It would be something interesting. Now, obviously, a lot of times we use the word interesting, but here we've used the verb interest. So that interests our writer. It means that it grabs his attention, something that makes him want to go look and see what's going on. So you could use it in this way of like, maybe you have a book that you really like and you say, hey, I think you should read this book because I think this book would interest you, or this book interested me.
Yeah.
I think it might interest you, so maybe you could read it.
That's it.
And so in here, in this case, the log jam is like, hey, that's the thing, that's something to do. Let's go look.
Go check that out, exactly. My brain likes it. I want to learn more and experience more of it. I am interested. It's interesting to me. All right, so let's find out about the log jam. It says the jam looked like it was about to break. Okay, so they probably have all the logs stuck in there. There's probably the workers standing out on the logs. They use these big long sticks with a hook, and they would be pulling the logs through, you know, trying to get them to come through more and more. So eventually they start to flow and everything gets back to normal. Then that's exactly what happened. Then all of a sudden, part of it did. So the logs start to move quicker and quicker as the water pushes them, and they start to flow down the river more easily. But as this happens, dangerous things can also happen quickly. Being a log driver, or whatever the exact title, it's kind of a dangerous job back then. As we learned that, having all the logs start to flow quickly, that caused Dickie to fall into the river.
Oh, no.
And of course, the danger in the river, you could drown in the water, but also with all these logs banging together, you wouldn't want to get stuck between the logs. That could be really bad. And again, this happened very, very quickly.
Yes, so they use the phrase all of a sudden. So this phrase, all of a sudden, just means quickly, suddenly, spontaneously, just out of nowhere, that happened in an instant, in a second.
Very surprising, too.
Boom, nobody was prepared, and he's in the water.
Oh, no.
Oh,
Dickie.
I wonder what's going to happen.
I don't know. What's going to happen? Well, if someone doesn't save him, I guess Jimmy is going to win the burling contest. But we don't want that to happen. We want him to be saved, but we don't know what's going to happen. You guys don't either. So come back tomorrow and join us. We're going to find out. I hope it's good.
I hope so too.
Oh boy. See ya.
Bye.
I came across Jimmy after the match. He told me that Dickie stepped on his foot and tripped him. Also, he would get his revenge for Dickie's dishonest play. The next year, I returned to the same lumber town. It was earlier in the season, and everyone was at the big log jam. That interested me, so I went to check it out. The jam looked like it was about to break. Then, all of a sudden, part of it did. That caused Dickie to fall into the river.
Hi， 大家好，我是 Stephanie。那我们今天一起看单字。第一个单字呢是 trip， 动词绊倒。Penny tripped on a step while she was using her phone. Penny 在用手机的时候被台阶绊倒。第二个单字呢是 dishonest， 形容词不诚实的、不老实的。Nobody likes dishonest people. 没有人喜欢不诚实的人。第三个单字呢是 jam， 名词交通堵塞。There are traffic jams during rush hour. 尖峰时段可能会出现交通堵塞。最后一个单字呢是动词 interest， 使感兴趣。Books interest James very much. 书籍引起 James 很大的兴趣。好，那我们一起看今天的文法。第一个文法呢是 A comes across B，A 碰巧遇到 B。Come across 是碰见、偶然发现的意思。大家有没有巧遇过明星的经验呢？我最近一次遇到明星就是凤小岳。那我们依这个情境造一个句子 ：I came across Ryan Vaughn on the street。我在街上巧遇凤小岳。第二个重点呢是 all of a sudden， 突然的、出乎意料的。Sudden 这里是名词，突然、忽然。那这个片语呢，相当于副词的 suddenly。All of a sudden, the baby started crying. 突然间，小宝宝开始哇哇大哭。好，那以上就是今天的讲解。See you.
The National Museum of Natural Science welcomes visitors of all ages. Besides the main exhibit halls, Space Theater, and 3D Theater, what else can you see? To learn about the collections, you can sign up for a free guided tour. There are always helpful volunteers at the museum. Or you could rent an audio guide player to find out more. Children in 3rd grade or higher can go to the Naturalist Center with their parents. It has lots of specimens and microscopes to give children the chance to get hands-on experience. Volunteer teachers are on hand to help kids out. There are also many fun activities and classes. Children between the ages of 3 and 8 can go to the Kids Science Place. It has toys, games, and teaching aids. Don't forget that the official site of the museum gives you even more information in the Digital Museum and the Digital Museum of Children. You can find out more about the stories behind the exhibits at home.
See you next time.